Level 1. The Cast Assignment. You are 6 years old when the cast examiners come to your sept, and you don't understand yet that the small tests they run you through, reflex drills, tone recognition, how quickly you calm down after they startle you, are deciding the entire shape of your life before you're old enough to have an opinion about it. The fire cast examiner lingers longer on you than the others. Not because you're the strongest child in the room, you aren't, but because you're the one who stops flinching fastest and starts calculating instead. He marks something on his slate and doesn't explain what. Your parents don't argue when the Sept Council confirms the placement. Nobody argues with cast assignment on any world the Tauvier touches, because the system isn't cruel in the way outsiders assume. It's simply certain, the way water is certain about which way it flows downhill. Your fire cast now, Shas, and the earth cast creche workers who raised you say goodbye, without ceremony, the way you'd release a tool to the hand that's actually built to use it. You're marched to a training bastion on the edge of your sept with 24 other reassigned children, and the first thing the drill masters teach you isn't how to fight. It's how to listen for the ethereal cast's guidance during assembly, a frequency of calm that settles over the whole room whenever a low-ranking out addresses the recruits, and you feel something in your chest unclench that you didn't know was clenched. You ask another recruit if he feels it too. He looks at you like the question doesn't make sense, the way you wouldn't ask whether he feels gravity. That's when you understand, dimly, that the greater good isn't a lesson they're going to teach you. It's a current you were always going to be swimming in, whether or not you notice the water. Level 2. The Fire Warrior Trial. The training bastion doesn't ease you in. Within your first year, you're running drills in void suits through simulated hab block collapses while drone instructors track your kill efficiency down to the round. And the instructors don't praise accuracy alone. They praise conservation, the number of rounds you didn't need. A cadre fire team is only as strong as its worst shots discipline, your drill master tells you. And you learn quickly that Kauyon, the patient hunter's approach, isn't a tactic you're taught once. It's a posture you're expected to hold in your bones before they'll trust you with a pulse rifle that fires anything but training rounds. The trial that actually separates cadets from warriors is a coordinated firing exercise against simulated orc breach waves. 3 fire teams working overlapping arcs with no verbal commands allowed. Only tactical dorsal drone signals relayed cadre to cadre. You freeze for half a second on your first live run when a drone signal contradicts what your eyes are telling you about an incoming flank. Half a second is long enough that your team takes a simulated casualty, and your drill master doesn't shout at you. He simply asks, in front of the whole cadre, whether you trust the network or your own eyes more. You don't have a good answer yet. He tells you that's fine, today, but that a fire warrior who never resolves that question gets people killed. You spend the next months resolving it in the only way the Tauvier offers, by learning that the network sees more of the battlefield than you ever will alone, and that trusting it isn't a failure of nerve. It's the entire point of what you're becoming. Level 3 Shas'la. You graduate into a fire team as the lowest rank that still gets called warrior, Shas'la, and your first deployment is a garrison rotation on a newly annexed world where the local human population hasn't decided yet whether the Tauvier is liberation or occupation. Your cadre's job isn't glorious. Patrol routes, checkpoint discipline, the slow work of demonstrating that Tau rule means functioning infrastructure and full granaries rather than the imperial iconography these people are used to associating with control. You take your first confirmed kill during an ambush by holdout insurgents in a market district, dropping a combatant at 40 meters with a shot your cadre Shas calls clean, which you learn is the highest compliment a fire team leader gives without actually smiling. What surprises you isn't the kill. It's the aftermath, watching your cadre's earth cast liaison arrive within the hour to treat the wounded on both sides of the firefight without distinction, because the Tauvier doesn't consider civilians collateral in the way you'd assumed empires simply had to. You ask your cadre Shas whether the insurgents will ever actually accept the greater good, and she tells you that's not your question to answer yet, only your question to keep asking, because a fire warrior who stops wondering whether the war is worth its cost is a fire warrior who stopped being any use to the Tauvier at all. Level 4 Shas'uat. Your cadre Shas falls during a Montcas strike against a fortified Imperial Guard position, caught in counter-battery fire while directing your team's withdrawal after the objective secured, and the promotion that follows isn't a reward. It's a vacancy you're the only one qualified to fill. You're Shas'ui now, a team leader, and the drone network that once felt like an external voice guiding your decisions has become something you issue commands through instead of merely receiving them from. Command at this scale means holding 4 other warriors lives inside every tactical call, and your first major test comes during a coordinated Monka assault where your team's assigned to punch through a defensive line ahead of the main battlesuit advance. The Imperial position holds harder than intelligence predicted, and you have a choice your old cadre Shas would have made instantly, and you find genuinely difficult. Push forward into a gap that might collapse the entire enemy line or fall back, and preserve your team for a target that might present itself more cleanly later. You push forward. It works, but 2 of your warriors take wounds that will keep them out of the field for a season, and your Shas'el reviewing the engagement afterward tells you the call was correct even though the cost stings. Because Kauyon patience and Monka aggression aren't opposites. There is single judgment you have to make fresh every time, and you made it well. You don't feel like you made it well. You feel like you spent 2 warriors' bodies on a calculation. Your Shas'el tells you that feeling is the actual qualification for the rank, not something you're supposed to get over. Level 5, Shas'vi. Years of clean campaign records earn you selection into your Sept's veteran cadre, Shas'vi. Warriors trusted with the newest pulse weapon variants before wider deployment, and with training the next generation of Shas'la coming up through the same bastion you once trained in yourself. You find the teaching harder than the fighting ever was. A recruit under your instruction freezes during a live drone signal contradiction exercise exactly the way you once did, and you recognize the moment so precisely that you have to stop yourself from simply telling him the answer, because you remember that the answer only holds if he arrives at it himself. He does, eventually, 3 weeks later than you did, and you find yourself unreasonably relieved about it in a way nothing in your training prepared you to expect from watching someone else succeed. Your veteran cadre gets pulled into escort duty for a traveling, ethereal touring frontier septs to reaffirm the Tau VA among populations still adjusting to Tau governance, and standing close enough to an ound to feel the calm frequency at full intensity for the first time in years reminds you of the 6-year-old in the assessment room who didn't understand yet what he was feeling. The ethereal asks your name directly during the tour, which servants of hers rarely bother to do with veteran rank warriors, and tells you that your recruit's after-action report specifically credited your patience for his survival. You don't know what to do with praise from that direction. You carry it anyway, the way you'd carry any weapon you weren't sure yet how to properly use. Level 6, Shas'el. A battlesuit commission is not something you request. It's something a Sept's War Council decides you've earned after your name appears in enough after-action reports that overlooking you stops being defensible, and you find yourself sealed into an 15-8 crisis suit for the first time, feeling less like you've gained power and more like you've been handed a responsibility with a much higher cost of failure attached to it. Command at Shas'el rank means coordinating entire fireteam clusters rather than a single squad, weighing objectives across a battlefield too large to see with your own eyes even from inside a suit sensor array. Your first major engagement in the armor is a defensive action against an orc Wyak, threatening 3 septs worth of agricultural infrastructure, and the greenskins' sheer numbers make the Kauyon patience your entire career has been built on feel almost suicidal to attempt. You commit anyway, drawing the orc advance into a killing ground your Earth-cast engineers spent days quietly preparing, and the battle that follows costs you real casualties. Warriors under your direct command whose names you know, whose crushed siblings you'll have to speak with afterward. It works. The Wyak breaks against a defense it never sees coming until it's already inside it, and your name starts circulating through Sept command channels attached to the word that every Firecast officer secretly wants attached to it. Reliable. Level 7, Shas'o. The commission to Shas'o arrives the way most things of consequence do within the Tau VA, not through ambition, but through a Sept's collective judgment that you're the officer best suited to hold an entire cadre's worth of Firecast doctrine in your decisions. You command battlesuit teams and fire warrior cadres both now, and the scale of what you're responsible for stops being measurable in individual warriors at all. Entire campaigns hinge on calls only your position to make, whether to commit reserves, whether a diplomatic overture from a contact world deserves military patience or immediate pressure, whether the cost of a Monka strike against a stubborn holdout is worth the greater good it theoretically serves. A rival human warlord tests your sept's border within months of your promotion, probing old grievances the Imperium never quite abandons. And you handle the incursion the way your entire career has trained you to: patient reconnaissance, a Kauyon strike, time to catch his forces overextended, minimal Tau casualties purchased with maximum enemy disruption. Your ethereal advisor commends the campaign's efficiency during a formal review, and you find yourself thinking, not for the first time, about the frequency you felt as a child in that assessment room, the current you were always swimming in, and wondering whether every choice you've made since has genuinely been yours, or simply the water finding the fastest way downhill through you specifically. Level 8. The doubt beneath the doctrine. Decades into command, you've started noticing something in your own certainty that no younger Shas'ui under your authority has ever mentioned needing to examine. A frictionless quality to every major decision, an ease in trusting the network, the doctrine, the ethereal cast's guidance, that feels less like conviction earned through reasoning and more like a groove worn so deep you no longer notice you're following it. You mentioned this once, carefully, to an old Earth cast engineer who served alongside your first cadre Shas decades ago, and he tells you he's wondered the same thing his entire life, without ever finding a version of the question that didn't feel like betrayal to ask aloud. A captured Imperial officer during a prisoner exchange asks you directly whether you've ever genuinely doubted the greater good, or whether the pheromone calm the Ethereals project simply makes doubt impossible to sustain past the moment it starts. You tell him the question doesn't shake anything in you. That's true. It's also, you realize afterward, exactly what he'd expect you to say whether or not it was true, and you can't find a version of yourself standing outside the Tauvier clearly enough to check. You keep commanding your cadres. You keep trusting the network that has never yet gotten you killed. But somewhere underneath every clean tactical call now sits a small, quiet question you suspect every Shas'o eventually inherits and never quite resolves. Whether the certainty that makes you good at this job is wisdom, or whether it's simply the current, still finding the fastest way through you, exactly the way it was always built to. If this saga was worth your time, hit like and subscribe for the next one.